Yes,
So like we said, you're an adult entertainer,
I
right?
am indeed.
An adult video star, but you didn't start out that way. You
No.
were a lawyer and a journalist. So,
Yes.
how was that getting into lawyering and journaling and all that stuff?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But so how did you get into the lawyer and journaling and all that stuff? And then what prompted you to leave that to become, the star of stars?
Yeah. So journalism was first. I went to
Okay.
undergrad at UC Riverside. And I studied English, and I was like, well, I don't really know what the fuck I can do with an English degree. I figured there was
Sure.
three options. There
Right.
was you get a creative writing and you go like become an author. You get a PhD and you become a professor, or you
Right.
go to grad school and you become a journalist. So I was like, I asked some teachers like, what do which one pays the best? And they're like, oh, definitely journalism. I was like, all right, cool, whatever. I did no research. Got to journalism school in New York, and they're like, "Yeah, you're not gonna make any fucking money here. You got to be here for the love of the game." And I was like, "What have I done? Like, what have I done?" And so I did that, and it was actually really fun. It was really rewarding when I was first doing it, because I was doing like government accountability stuff, so like more on the investigative side.
Ooh,
Yeah.
nice.
So I was doing a bit of that, and that's why I was working. I was doing the hospital wait times because health was like sort of my beat, and I really knew how to work with data. So I was getting data from like the CDC and sort of manipulating it and figuring out like, oh, what are the trends? Like, what are the trends with nursing homes? What are that kind of stuff. And that
Mhm.
was really rewarding. And I was able to talk to people who had really been hurt by the system and like figure out like what they went through, and so that was really great. But that kind of dried up in terms of work opportunity, and I ended up working at a newswire called Reuters, and they were excellent. I did a lot of good stuff with them, but it was just very much grindstone. Like, we got to get like 3 stories a day out of you. Like, come on, like do this kind of shit. And that was fun in its own right. But I was doing it during Black Lives Matter,
Ooh,
and dog, like, there's only so many stories you can write about like a black person getting shot by the
right.
cops before. For me, I'm like, yo, I can't
Yeah.
keep doing this, and feeling like I had to do like, oh well, both sides. You got to listen to both sides. And I was like, for me, that's not honest, right? Like that's not who I am. That's not how I feel.
Right.
Um, so I was like, okay, well, then maybe what I should do is be a lawyer, because then I can really advocate super strong for one side that I actually believe in, and do that.
Nice.
So I went that route.
You
Came
put your
back to
money
LA.
where your mouth was, really.
Yeah, yeah. Well, until I did an internship at a police misconduct firm, and I was like, I cannot fucking do this, man. Like,
Oh,
like the
Yeah.
first
Oh,
day,
yeah.
the first day they were like, so how do you feel about going to autopsies? And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then I was like, oh right,
Oh,
yeah, not great,
yeah.
not great.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and the stories and the footage that you have to review it was basically the same kind of thing. Now, obviously, working for the families and trying to get justice for the families was a much different occupation than just writing about it, but it was still very challenging. So
Mhm.
I ended up going into finishing law school, taking the bar, passing the bar, and going
Where
into
did you
housing
go to
discrimination.
law school at?
I went to law school at UCLA,
Oh,
and I
cool.
went to journalism school at Columbia in New
Okay,
York.
cool.
Um,
Nice.
oh wow.
and yeah, and so I ended up going into housing discrimination and housing justice kind of stuff. I was working with folks trying to get evicted, or trying to stop them from getting evicted, trying to stop them from losing Section 8,
Yeah.
harassment from lawyers. I was actually there was a law passed by the LA City Council about tenant harassment, was basically barring it and making illegal for like X, Y, and Z things to happen if that be tenant harassment. I was one of the guys that was working on it, and I got quoted in the LA Times about it. I was like, oh, this is a new thing,
Oh,
like getting quoted,
yeah.
and
Look
so
at you.
yeah, that was fun. It was cool to be on the other side of that interaction. And so that was really fun. I was enjoying it, but it was during COVID, so like I was winning everything, and I was like, "Fuck,
Yeah.
man, this shit is easy. You know what the fuck y'all talking about?" Like but the protections were so strong in the city and the county that you basically couldn't lose as
Mhm.
a tenants' rights lawyer. And as that was sort of drying up, I was like, damn, like, so I'm gonna have to start looking at these families in the eye and being like, you're on the fucking street. Like, I'm sorry, I wasn't good enough, you know? And
Oof.
at the same time, I was living with my brother, and he has like some immunocompromised, situation with his health.
Yeah.
And so they were like, oh, and we're coming back to the office. And I was like,
Oh,
I'm fucking not.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And it was funny too, because it was before the Omicron surge. It was like in September, like, all right, we're coming back to the office. And I was like,
It's a
fuck that, I'm
little
not, because I don't
quick.
know. Yeah, right. It was like after the vaccines came out in like March or April.
Yeah.
And then they're like, okay, September, everything seems like it's going okay. Like, we're going to come back to the office. And I was like, I don't know where this shit's going. Like, we basically just started this pandemic. I don't know. And
Yeah.
then the Omicron surge happened after I quit. And I was like, you know? Well, that was a good idea not to go back. During the Omicron surge, I did a part-time thing as a COVID tester, so maybe that wasn't the smartest thing in the world to do, but that's for a different story.